Hey, it's Liz D'Alto, and this is the Untamed the Wild Soul Woman podcast. From body image, sex, spirituality, money and relationships, to motherhood, creativity, business, communication, and desire, Untamed the Wild Soul Woman is the place to come for real stories and powerful advice to help you reclaim and redefine womanhood in the 21st century. Welcome to episode number 122 of the Untamed the Wild Soul podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth D'Alto, and this week's guest is my friend Lori Harder. I'm super excited to have Lori on, and I want to tell you what I appreciate about her the most. Being a fitness model and having a super successful network marketing business, Lori is a person we could all easily judge on many levels using that good old, well, easy for her. You know, she's gorgeous, she has an amazing husband, she lives in a beautiful house in LA. And what's cool is in this conversation, you get to hear how it wasn't always easy for her and isn't always easy for her even now. We talk about why she keeps going and how she does when it's not easy, and the value of earning your happy. She is someone who shines her light super brightly in the world, is committed to learning as she goes. She's hilarious and just super herself, which I love. I love to geek out with people who enjoy learning as much as I do. So we talk about a couple of cool things in this interview. Creating a culture of I want to know more and what that means. How she also reconciles being a fitness model with empowering women on a deeper level, since a lot of fitness and fashion and modeling doesn't have a positive message for women. So she talks about how she combines the two. And we also talk about her humble beginnings. So it's a sweet episode. Lots of stuff here. I hope you enjoy it. Share it up if you dig it. Leave us a message in the Facebook group if you have any questions or want to make any comments, as always, at untameyourself.com/Facebook. And if you want any of the links that we mentioned during the interview, you can grab them in the show notes at untameyourself.com/episode-122. Here we go. Lori and I connected super briefly about a year and a half ago at a book event. And then just through mutual friends, we've been kind of following each other online. And I recently got to just chat with Lori via Skype. I was a guest on her podcast, and now she's coming on ours. She is super fun. There's probably going to be a lot of giggling in this episode. But she's also badass, quite successful. She's been a cover model like a gajillion times, or like 10. For fitness magazines and publications. She's an incredibly successful business of her own, and lots of different elements and components to her business too, which is super cool. She has her own podcast called Earn Your Happy, and we'll talk about that today. We'll talk about earning your amazing lifestyle. We'll talk about being happy, and we'll just riff as usual, as we do with everyone. So Lori, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited because I really just like that this is kind of the sequel to our conversation.
It really is. We just get to keep hanging out, except in a way. And you know what? This is kind of my whole intention for the podcast to begin with, which is that I just know so many incredible people, or just am constantly getting connected by the other incredible people I know. And it's like, why not? I'm having all these incredible conversations anyway. Why not let people be a fly on the wall? Because they can pick up insights, pick up whatever. And in a lot of ways, it's also like modeling. Being in 2016 and how to connect with other humans, even in this like weird digital age we live in now, where that kind of is amazing through technology, but also challenging because it's all so complicated and fast moving.
You know what? I love it. And I know that we talked about loving our podcast, but
Yeah.
it's just such a no-brainer because it's taking what you love to do and creating content out of it. So It's really, when I first started, I felt totally selfish because I thought, wow, I'm actually giving back, because this feels more like I'm benefiting, getting to chat with people, really dig into the questions and the topics that interest me. So, I think about that all the time when people ask me, what should I do? How can I be happy? It's like, what do you love to do? What would you love to be able to do and then create content out of it? And that's really all that we're doing.
Yeah, totally. So first question, what do you love about being a woman?
Ooh, that's really good. You know what's crazy? Elizabeth, I was thinking of you on my trip. So I just got back from a trip. I went to Cabo for 1 week. And let me tell you, I have not gone on a trip where it is just like me and my husband and don't have to be anywhere or do anything. And I fully embrace being a woman. And those words rang in my ears when you said adorn yourself. And literally, like, I've been wearing red lipstick every single day. say I've been just like wearing clothes that I'm enjoying, and really the process of even getting dressed. I know this is kind of what we talked about before, but how great to feel these great fabrics on your skin and be able to dress up and just change how you feel simply by maybe something you put on, but looking at it with intention. So I know I complimented your ring earlier because it's like really looking at how beautiful that ring is, and what it means, and that you can wear it. And that's one thing I love about being a woman. And I really embraced it on this trip. I think another thing I love about being a woman is I really feel that we like to analyze. And I love that. I love digging in. I love analyzing topics. I love talking through things. Yeah, those are just a couple things. I think I could go on and on.
I dig that. And so for anyone listening or watching, when Lori is saying we talked about before, we talked about when she interviewed me. So we'll link that up in the show notes so you can listen to our podcast episode over on her turf as well. That's gorgeous and super fun, right? Because especially for you as someone who does a lot of photo shoots, does a lot of modeling, and gets adorned not necessarily by your choosing all the time, right?
Yes, absolutely. There's definitely been, it's really crazy because a lot of the fitness shoots that I've done in my lifetime, like you look in the mirror and it is not what you would normally look like very, very little makeup, or your hair is done in some crazy way and you're wearing, pants that like they pull up past your belly button, or just things like that where you have to totally let go. Because really when you're shooting and doing things like that, you're selling for them, right? You're helping that client. So you have no say in how you're showing up or how you look. So it's really interesting because, you're about to show the world yourself, or it's about to go out to a ton of people, but it's not you. So it's really a weird dynamic. It's very strange.
Okay. So a big part of my story, which I don't remember if I shared this with you before, was one of the things that got me to quit fitness and go more in the direction that I'm going. And I want to be super clear. I don't demonize fitness. I don't make fitness wrong, like to each their own. But for me, it was during a video shoot. I was creating a video for marieclaire.com through a studio that I was working in New York City. And they painted these contour lines on my stomach. And I had my own abs. So I was just pissed. And to me in that moment, I felt like I was being part of a problem. And so how you just described that is like you're showing yourself, but it's not you. How do you interact with that? And again, I personally have made that wrong. I don't think it is wrong. It just wasn't for me. So I'm curious how you reconcile that, like with your integrity or with just how you feel about yourself.
That is the best question ever. And I think that I'm fully aware of, well, I don't think I'm fully aware of how things function, right? So how can we get around things, and how can we use those eyes that we're getting? So that's been huge for me is if you are able to get in front of people, sometimes it's like maybe you have those 15 minutes, or maybe there's that picture that leads people somewhere else, right? Because that's what's going to happen. Oh, there's this cover, there's this person, but I want to know more, because we're in this culture now of I want to know more. So thankfully, thanks to social media, thanks to websites, it's like, I literally, and I was going to call my book this, but maybe it's a second book, but it's the bait and switch. I'm just going to be really honest. Maybe I'm baiting you with the abs. Maybe I'm baiting you with the glam or the makeup or whatever that was that they had in that magazine, but I'm going to switch it out on you because it's all going to be heart-centered and soul. But if that's what I have to do to get you to come and look, because let's be totally real. All you have to do is take one look at Instagram to see what's getting eyes, right? It's like I can put out some spiritual love tile and get like 50 likes, and put up some abs and get hundreds and hundreds of likes. So if I have to get you with the abs to get you into the spirit zone, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm going to do it.
I really love that. This is an area where I've been super stubborn. Like, I threw the baby out with the bathwater for a while, and I was like, no, F that. And I think for everyone there's, again, you hit your line of discernment, but I dig that. I dig how much you own it, and that you're going, yeah, I'm going to flash the abs. And then guess what? We're going to talk about loving yourself.
It's true. And I get that it's a really fine line. I totally do. But if somebody's not doing it in that realm, who is? How do we change it if we're not walking among them in some way? it's like you're not going to get any eyes. You're not going to get any attention. So I try to do it in the most empowering way possible. So I'm not going to give you the sex look with my abs, right? It's going to be fun. It's going to be playful. It's going to be like a powerful stance or outfit or something that is more like, if I had a teenage daughter, I'd be okay with her looking at it or being like, yeah, I want to be fit, or I want to wear those clothes, or that would make me happy, or she looks super fun, or whatever that is.
Yeah, because one of the things I look at magazines whenever I pass through a store, I find it so fascinating. I can't believe there's still a thing, but I live in a very specifically curated lifestyle, as I know you do as well. But I notice often, especially in ads, the facial expressions are dead, they're empty, they're dull. These people look outrageously bored sometimes. Like the high fashion stuff, right?
Yes.
It's like there's a person in the picture and that woman looks so intensely bored and checked out. Why the F would I want that bag? I don't understand it. So I dig what you're saying because I think this is one of the ways I appeal to people as well, which is it's the factor, the Meg Ryan thing from whatever the hell, When Harry Met Sally. I'll have what she's having, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh my gosh. So much yes.
Yeah, cool. So I want to stay on the topic of photo shoots for a second because I'm curious. How many years, like how old were you when you did your first one? How many years have you been doing, or how many years have you been doing it?
I think, the real one or like the kind where you think you're modeling? Like 26 or 27, and I'm 35.
Okay, cool. So you've been doing that for a long time. What have you noticed as you have evolved? How has the experience been different for you?
Oh my God. It's so different. I think in the beginning, you don't know what you want, right? Like you're just going. So basically, I'm that person that is getting baited for the most part because I think that I thought fitness just meant you were happy because I struggled with my weight growing up. I came from a really overweight family and I started my first diet when I was 8 years old. So to me, I just thought skinny people had it all. Like I just thought they were happy. And I thought with fit people, especially, I was like, fit to me meant confidence. I don't know where I got that from, but it just equaled confidence. So I just chased that no matter what it looked like. And at that time when I was, in my early 20s, mid 20s, fitness was way more, and I'm sure that it still is. I put my blinders on, but it was way more like you had to put a thong on in a magazine, like in order to like get attention or something. And I just remember not wanting to I did everything but that, right? I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And so many photographers at the time were like, well, this is fitness. This is what you have to do. And I was like, I refuse to think this is what we have to do. Right. So, everything for me. So even though I had a really successful career, it took a long freaking time. So a lot of the girls who were, right out of the gates at 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, I was like year 6 or 7 that I actually started breaking through. And the reason that I started breaking through is because I was so consistent and I was appealing to women only. Like, and women are loyal. They're loyal. They might take longer to break and grow, but they're really, really loyal. And I just watched that progression because I refused to do what was going on in the fitness industry. And I just remember like having these inner temper tantrums. Like, this can't be how it is. Like, this can't be what it takes to get on a cover because, okay, so for some reason that was a goal of mine. So when I was young, that was the only thing that kept me going were fitness magazines. Because at the time I didn't have a mom or a sister or anyone in my life who was into fitness whatsoever or into health at all. So I would beg my mom to buy me fitness magazines. So these women on the cover became my role models or like, trying to learn from them. So I would put covers up everywhere. And to me, that was like the ultimate confidence, the ultimate way to inspire because I just held on to those women, like carried them around in my gym bag, like everything. So that was the goal. That just became the life goal. And it was, I mean, for 3 years straight, I submitted pictures. I did everything possible, showed up at the events that these people were at to be on a cover. And they were like, you're not our look. You're not there. You're not our girl. You look too exotic. What? Okay. At the time I had brown hair, dark eyes, and I'm Native American. Now I'm blonde. But anyway, it just everything that they could have said no, they said no. And I was like, okay, this is still a dream of mine, but what do I have to do in order to do this? And it became so intense because I was holding on to this goal that I was not getting. And I hit this point of, what if this never happens, right? Could I still be happy? Because I was basing all of my happiness on this goal. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, I literally am at this point where I feel like if I don't get this, like my life is over. That's how I felt. It was just dramatic, right? In my mid-20s. And I had this breakthrough moment. I literally had this cover up that I was looking at on my vision board. And I just threw this tantrum on my bed. Nobody was home, thank God. And I was like banging my arms and my feet and wailing like, ah! Like, they don't like me. I'm useless. I'm worthless. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not this enough. I'm not that enough. And I was like, what do I want from that? Like, what do I want from this cover? And I was like, you know what? I want community. I want to be an inspiration. I want to inspire people. I want to be people's hope, and I want to give them a path. And I want them to feel just as good as I feel standing here right now, not attached to any goal or anything, because it's within them that they can create something. And I just totally let that cover goal go. Now, I still had the intention, and did I want it? Yes, but I just let it go. I was like, I will be happy no matter what. And I'm going to create something so big and so undeniable that if it doesn't happen, great, but it will be undeniable. So I just went to work. I went to work inspiring, creating community. I started doing these Sunday sessions every single Sunday. I started doing these seminars. I started network marketing actually to create income in order to just create whatever I wanted, not to wait for people to anoint me good enough for a cover or anoint me good enough for something. It was like I just went to town. So, of course, when you let that go and you just focus on what you actually want out of it, guess what happens? You end up getting that thing. So that's so all of a sudden they want me for this cover because I'm creating community. So I've created a brand. I created community, and they're like, "Oh, that's interesting, right?" Because it's about adding value. Like, it's not about how do I look and what's going on, and it's not even like, is my brand good enough, or is it flashy enough, or is it, because I know that at this point we're all business women now, or whatever you're trying to create. It's like, are you doing what you love? Do you love it? Is it working? Yeah. And when you get so enveloped in that is like when the beauty happens and all of those doors open. Now, it takes way longer than you want, but those are the lessons that we have to learn throughout the process. But it's releasing that outcome and just doing what you love.
And I appreciate you saying it takes way longer than you want. I mean, if there's any universal life lesson, that's it. I mean, yes. Some people, we get so distracted by the handful, by the few who legitimately are an overnight success that we forget. There's a great quote. I think it's a Marie Forleo quote, but maybe she has shared it and it's originally from someone else. It doesn't matter. But if you want to be an overnight success, you have to be an everyday hustler. And even that, the conversation of hustle, you and I were talking about Gary Vee before we hopped online, because you were saying how you've been listening to his stuff and you've been on Snapchat. You see all these, any phrase that says, this is the new that. I kind of hate those things, right? I see some people that like, flow is the new hustle, or, strong is the new pretty, and all these things. It's not my gig, because I think always both. I'm always like, both. Mm-hmm. You can have all the things. It doesn't have to be both. This or that. It can absolutely be both. And by exalting one, we push the other down. It doesn't have to be that way. But so I think some people now, I feel like there's a movement around business and around lifestyle going, no, don't hustle, like receive and all these stuff. And yes, I believe that, but it's always about integrating the two. So I appreciate you reminding people that it takes a bit longer than we might like to hope. But because we've been programmed to think that it should happen overnight, or that it should be like that. But really, you're probably just on a great path.
Girl, I wanted a book like 3 years ago. I wanted my book to be done like literally, I think I started it almost three. almost 3 years ago now, maybe 2.5. And it just now, like, I'm pretty much done with it, but it's just now getting in the process of like getting, looking for publishers to sell it to. Mm-hmm. And was that, and do you know what that means? You know what that means. It's like, it's going to be another 12 to 18 month process after that. So it's like, if I were to try to have forced that though, it wouldn't remotely be what I know, like literally just hit me on the plane ride home of how I'm going to pitch it just yesterday.
Yes.
So look how long it took for me to come to the actual birth of what it's really supposed to be and impact people in the way that I know it's supposed to. And before yesterday, it would not have.
Yeah.
So it's so long, and there's so much work around that, and there's so much letting go and then hustle and then letting go and then hustle and then thinking and then talking, and then that people don't see that. Even it's like, man, I've just been struggling even with my intuition around it, because it's like I thought that I had intuition before, and I'm like, maybe intuition is a process.
Absolutely.
Maybe it comes in waves. Maybe I'm learning so much. God, life is good.
My friend Lisa Berkovitz was on the podcast months ago, and it was one of my favorite conversations I've had because we talked about that. It's called a path for a reason. Most paths are not a straight shot to anywhere. And often an intuition is going to lead you somewhere to a pivot point for you to go, oh, I had to walk down this path so I could get to this spot so I could take this detour. And it's kind of like walk, pivot, walk, turn, or whatever. Oh, go around that loop, come back to the same damn lesson. All right, try this way instead. But yeah, the path is certainly, it's not straight. It's not always clear. But I think intuition, that's how it is. It leads you. We have to walk through so we can get the lessons and everything we needed and develop the patience and become the person who can actually embody the dream and carry it out, right?
Oh, I love that. And it's so true. I can't even, I'm like high-fiving you through this computer right now.
Yeah.
But this morning I was in Soul Cycle, and we were literally talking about that. And also just along that path, there's going to be the people to support you, and there's going to be the people who are horrible to you. And the people who support you are amazing, and you need them, and they're amazing. But the people who are mean to you and horrible to you, you need them even more.
Yeah.
Because in order to go where you want, we can't grow if we're not having any resistance. I was thinking about that, like the people along the path who support you. It's like them giving you roses, and roses are great and roses are awesome. But if you squat with roses or do walking lunges with a rose in each hand, you're not changing anything.
Yeah.
Really. It's like you want those people who throw weights at you and just it feels heavy and it's hard and it's horrible. And because that's where you grow those muscles. That's where you really understand what it feels like to push through something, to get through that resistance. And once you're through it, it's like everything is so much easier, right? You put those weights down, you're over it. It's like, whoa, I feel so light right now. Like this is such a great perspective to have after this. Everything is even more clear, more beautiful. So it's kind of like along that path, I think people are always so scared of that, right? What if this person says this? Or I'm just so scared because what are people going to say? And I'm going to be judged. Thank God. Thank God, because as you get judged and as people say things, you become more clear on what you really stand for. And that is the beautiful part.
That's amazing, because when people come at you or push your button or question, I love that. I love the haters or the challengers. Just helps me get more clear on what's my message or where do I stand. And sometimes this is interesting. I've been feeling into this lately, because you know how it's one thing when something pushes your button and you notice it, but it's one thing when it's a repeated button and it doesn't gradually annoy you less. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So if it's still just as intense every time, and for me, that thing is unsolicited feedback. It drives me nuts, not just to be the receiver of it. In fact, it drives me less nuts when I'm the receiver of it. When I see other people dishing it out on each other, this is one of the reasons why I can't spend that much time on Facebook, because it's just it's like a cesspool for a bunch of like unqualified advice getting dumped on people without permission. Drives me crazy. But my inquiry around that was, why does it bother me so much, right? So this is your thing, those challengers, and every once in a while, some will come through that actually is qualified. I'm like, oh, great. killer point. Thank you so much. I learned something there. So who knows? Maybe it's that for every 300 useless ones, the one good one comes through.
You know, it's so interesting. So I was reading this book, and it's a decent book. Like, it's one of those books that I kind of read through and then, read through quickly, but there were those sentences you read and you read and you read to get that one sentence.
Yes,
okay. So anyway, that was this book totally on this trip. I was like, oh, bore. Great. Okay. Awesome. But now I'm not mentioning the title because I don't want to put that out there. So anyway, it's about loving everything that comes up. Like, just love it. And that's your lesson. So to me, like, I'm hearing that. And now after that book, all I can think of is, because now I'm really embracing everything that's annoying me. It's very bizarre, right? So for you, maybe it's just this great lesson, and I have no idea, to expand even more on those people who just need to be heard.
That's
like
it.
those people who just need to be heard. You're like, I get it. You want your voice out there because you haven't figured out your own way to put it out there. So you're putting it out there on other people's stuff. They're like, that's good, but here's how I can do better.
Right? That's the
and
thing.
you're like, no, I love you. I love you. I love you. I freaking love you. You just you're dying to be heard.
I haven't thought of it like that before. And that you know me, I feel everything through my body. That made me relax and really open to it, that people just want to be heard. People just want to be heard. And when they don't have their own platform, they need to jump off on someone else's. It makes sense. All good. So I love that your podcast is called Earn Your Happy. Because earning has always been something, it's one of the things I most appreciate that my mom instilled in me. When I was little, if I needed money for something, my mom would say, great, vacuum the living room, wash my car. And so I learned that there was, and everything has, the shadow, the gift, and the enlightened state. The dark side of that is feeling like you can't just get something, that everything has to be super, super hard to receive. But the great part is, we do live in a world where, for the most part, if you're able to earn, and if you're able to own that, if I put in this effort, I can receive this thing. And sometimes the effort is just becoming a better person or whatever. How did you choose that? Of all the things you could have named your podcast, why did you choose Earn Your Happy? And what's your relationship to earning?
There's so many different things. First of all, Earn Your Happy came to me. I thought it was a book title, but it came to me in a meditation, like, oh gosh, probably 3.5 or 4 years ago when I very first moved to California. And it was like so clear. I was like, something around earning your happy, because my entire life, it's checks and balances to me. It really is. It's kind of like, okay, well, if you're going to go enjoy this thing, what's the other thing to balance it out? Right. So I've always kind of looked at it that way. It has made sense to me in that way. That's finally how I kind of started to understand fitness and food and life and even love. It's like there's always something that you have to do in order to get a response that you want. Yeah. So even, we're in just such a weird time where different words can like get negative connotations and like whatever. Yes. It's like earn. People are like, well, do I have to earn it? Because, like you said, but at the same time, I'm totally that person too who analyzes the crap out of everything. Like we should just be able to get it. But even earning it is kind of like, okay, well, even if it's inside of you, you kind of have to do something to get there, right? You kind of have to, it's just a trade. So the word to me, earn, is kind of just a trade or a do or an action in order to get the response that you want. Yes. And I do believe that you have to put in something in order to get something back, right? You're always like doing checks and balances, always. So if you're in the red, what do you have to do to be in the green again? Like, what is that thing? So, earning happiness. I don't know. For me, there's quite a few things that do that, and they're always changing. They're always changing. There's a few fundamental things for me that will always be a good foundation. But then we're so diverse that there's other things too that you have to pay attention to. And that's why I love the podcast, is because really I talk a lot about fitness and health. And of course, we have to fuel our bodies, because that's how we're getting all the messages from our soul that we're understanding. But if we're not taking care of ourselves, we're not going to do that. We're not even going to be able to hear what our passion is. We're not going to be able to hear how we can be of higher service if that's not a good foundation. Right. So that's always a topic on there, is fitness and health. I'm finding through all successful people is taking care of yourself, self-care, nurturing, moving your body, good food. And then there's the whole other dynamic of well, okay, now that that's down, what do you want to do? What do you love? How do you love to connect? How do you want to serve? That's all your happiness.
I love. So introducing checks and balances, again, even the way you described it, there's a trade. Yeah, you're using some buzzwords that might trigger some people and go, oh, you and I on your show and offline have talked a lot about masculine and feminine energy, and whether the word is balance, whether it's a trade-off, whatever it is, if it's integration, if it's harmony, if anyone listening or watching, just insert the word that resonates most for you, and understand sometimes when we say doing, these are acts, right? Surrender is an act. Like for some of us, it's how do you do surrender, right? How do you do receptivity? So sometimes it is the inner work that we're doing. It's not that I need to like hustle, hard work. Sometimes it's the inner work. Sometimes it's the emotional work, the mindset work. But all of these things do require effort. Your spirituality requires effort. It requires effort to meditate. And I think effort is another word that really is getting the shaft in the collective right now. People are like, oh, not so much effort. But, things it doesn't have to be. We demonize these things. And I come from this place now of realizing in the last 3 or 4 years, some of the things that I demonized, threw the baby out with the bathwater, and then got my ass kicked because of it. And I'm like, no. How can we accept that there's a spectrum, right? So if there's a spectrum of effort, sometimes my effort actually looks like sitting on the couch and being quite lazy, because for me, it requires effort to relax. Because it's not
Oh my
my
gosh,
nature.
yes.
Relaxing is not my nature. Hustling actually is who I am. I am a hustler. So this is great. I love this. So how about happy? That's another thing. You hear people talk about, well, it's not all happy and things like that. So what is true happiness? Or what are the checks and balances, to put it in your frame, of happy to you?
Happiness to me is inner peace, but inner peace is not like, oh, everything is right. It's accepting everything that's coming in your world in that moment.
Yeah.
So you know what? Sometimes crap goes down, and it's like learning to accept it and find the peace within that period of time. Now it's not going to be like, oh, I just got totally like dragged through the mud on social media. I feel awesome.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't feel good, right? Or, oh my gosh, my sister totally took that the wrong way, and now she's super upset with me and I feel terrible. Like I have so much inner peace right now. Like that is not it. But it's my goal is always peace. Truly to always be finding how I can have more inner peace. And for me, it's a lot of prayer and a lot of asking to accept it, see the lesson in it, see how I could be better. Because yes, I've had a recent experience where I was not paying enough. My nature is to hustle too. I love hustling. I really, really do. So, but you have to have that like relax. Can't even tell you the blessings I got from taking a whole week off. I mean, it was so challenging, but the best thing I've done. I'm going to plan it in more now. But literally, it's my nature to hustle. So what happens when you hustle a lot is you can tend to not pay as much attention to the people that you love in your life, or really get focused on them, right? Because there's always a project, there's always something I can create.
That one just gave me a full body chill, because I've been doing that since my very first job at Cutco. I want to hear your story. Keep going.
So literally, I kind of got a slap in the face by a few people in my life, and it was probably the hardest thing to digest. And they said it in a really nice way, but it was very clear what they were saying. And so I'm starting something, whether it's on Mondays or not, but it just kind of is landing on Mondays, but more care Mondays. So whether I do 1 a month or 2 a month, to really sit and do something nice for the people in my life that I really care about. So whether that's write a note, write a card, call them up, set a Skype date, really invest back into my relationships, because I'm that person who's like you don't have to text me, you don't have to write me, you don't have to buy me anything, you don't have to call me, you don't have to do anything. And I'm like self-sufficient. I'm like, yeah, girl, I'll be here in 6 months. Let me know if you want to get together or go on that trip or whatnot. But guess what? Not everyone is like that. So it's remembering what people's love languages are, and remembering that. And if you don't know what love language is, it's how do they like to be loved? How do they like to be appreciated? And for me, it's like, you know what? I do have one too. I'm words of affirmation. I love for people to be like, how are you? You're awesome. I miss you. You're amazing, or whatever that is. So it's remembering that everyone has that. My mom is gifts. So to me, it's like, oh my God, does she really want this little trinket? Yes, she wants the trinket. Send the trinket.
It's so, we've had love languages have come up a bunch of times on the show in different contexts. And it is funny because I think that's one of the reasons that keeps us from connecting with people is that we don't understand how they function. In my relationship with my partner recently, one of the things that's come up is I am an internal processor and he is an external processor. So when there's a conflict in the moment, he needs to be talking about it right there and then. And it's interesting because I used to think I was that way. But what I've come to realize is if I talk about it then and there in the moment, I'm going to be saying a lot of things that I don't fully mean, that the other person can't unhear, and may actually be creating more work and more processing for the both of us later. And I came to realize this because I was getting exhausted from processing stuff all the time. And then I came to realize, oh, I need to get emotionally clear with myself before I could be talking about things. So we're very different in that way. And he couldn't, it was funny, we were in the car having this conversation. He's like, wait, really? Because he'll be like, okay, well, tell me how you feel. And sometimes I'm just such a sensory person. I feel it and I'm riding the wave of the emotion, but I don't need to put words to it. And so this is what I love about having other humans in my life to show me all the different ways that people function and operate. So I can just understand that not everyone is like me. That's been one of my biggest and hardest life lessons. Not everyone is like me.
Me too.
I kind of wish they were. I tend to notice that the people who I connect with most easily, like I have a feeling we're very similar. It's just easy because you're like, oh, so much. Okay, we could just roll with this. Let's do this. But to have more compassion and kindness and patience with the people who aren't is useful.
Yeah, and they bring so much contrast into life.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful because as much as I'm like, gosh, I just wish I had more people, where you just get that connection where it's like, oh my God, it's so fun and it flows and you can just sit and hours fly by with people. But then it's like, that's easy. Right. And we need some of that. It expands us. Like, even though we can expand in that situation and we get so many great messages, it's like, in order to gain even more perspective and expand even more and have the opportunity to grow into what we're supposed to be, we need that contrast. We need those people. We need to flip it and look and be like, why on earth would they look at it that way? Yeah. And sometimes it just makes everything so much juicier, Yeah.
A lot of richness there. And especially as someone who works with a lot of other people, the more I can expose myself to all the different ways of being, the more I can spot it when it comes up in one of my clients or someone in a program or someone that can be like, oh, I get it. I remember this texture, this feeling, this way of expressing. Got it. Now I know how to handle it because basically that other person initiated me into the understanding.
And what's so crazy to think about that just brought another thought into my brain is whatever we're not seeing or the way that they're seeing it, it's obviously because there are some people who I'm like, I don't even know how you could do that job. Like, I don't know how you can be an engineer or how you can love math or how you can, and there's a lot of reasons certain things are shut off in people or or that they can't see things a certain way is because if they did, it opens up this whole other world that it doesn't keep them focused on what they need. Or, when our brains are when your brains are so open to everything, or maybe the way that, you and I feel like we can see things and really be able to kind of just, you know what I'm saying? Like be open and see things and gain, all this different perspective. And some people can't, right? They're so close-minded because they're too busy trying to build a spaceship and move us to Mars. Like literally, if they were so open or able to see, maybe really understand human nature and different things like that, or a lot of emotional intelligence, sometimes it's like you wouldn't be focused or be able to do the job that you were put on this earth to do. So it's even understanding that's so amazing.
And I love that because I think of that all the time. People who work at the grocery store and check me out, I would shoot myself. I would never want to do that. Even we had a house mom for a while and I was like, man, I would not want to do other people's laundry, dishes, and cook for them. I barely want to do those things for myself. That's why I'm hiring it out. But all those things matter. Just because I don't value it doesn't mean it's not valuable. And I really want to emphasize this point for anyone watching or listening, because I think it's really easy to glamorize other people's lifestyles and not appreciate like how important what you do actually is. That you are part of a system that functions, whatever it is that you do, and whether that's in your family, whether that's in your career, in a company, in a business that you run, you are so valuable just inherently by nature of whoever you are or whatever you're doing. If you remove you from the puzzle, the system kind of breaks down. And so instead of thinking that you're not good enough because you're not doing something else, it's kind of cool to celebrate that exactly what you're doing does matter in some ways to some people or to a system or to a structure or something.
Oh my gosh, yes. And how much, no matter what you're doing, can change someone's day. Like it can absolutely, I don't know, it changes everything. Everything that you do and say has a ripple effect. So it's like
Yes.
when I'm checking out, when I'm talking to my assistant or brand coordinator, it's like just the way that we interact. And sometimes they can just say things or make my day so much that it's like my entire everything else and whoever else I'm talking to or whoever else they're writing or customer service or anything, that is so big. Like that's a way that like we were talking about, people just want to be heard. People just want to be seen. So no matter what your job is, you can see people, and really that could change everything for somebody.
Big time. And I was just talking to a client about this before we hopped on, and how at the different phases of development, our need to be seen, that will also shift and evolve. So when someone has low self-esteem or confidence, they need a lot of external validation. And once people are internally sourced for that, they're getting most of their validation from within and their worth and their value. There's still a need to be seen and heard sometimes, but often it's from people you perceive to be above you or who are further along on the path from you, because that's the kind of pat on the back that you need. So I have a hunch you could probably relate to this. With such a huge following, you are getting externally validated all the time, and my guess is you probably, it's lovely, but you don't need it.
Yeah.
But when a compliment or someone recognizes you for something comes from a peer or someone, again, that you perceive to be above you in some way, that actually does have more of an impact. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think no matter how much we, no matter how much we say, oh, we don't need it or we don't want it, we're striving, right? We're seeking. It's like having your parents say it. And for me, I am words of affirmation. So it's just, I think you're always looking at those people that you look up to, or people that are close to you or that you love, just to, whatever that is, whatever, I don't know, lock it in. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and that's a good distinction, rather. It doesn't have to be someone who's ahead of you, but someone who you actually do value their opinion. And I'm not
Totally.
saying we don't give a shit about the opinions of people who listen and follow, but there tends to be a more personal relationship. It's a different container for the relationship when that kind of feedback comes in and it really fuels you and lights you up.
I think as humans, we're always trying to make someone proud, right? Whether it's, I don't know, whether it's God, your parents, people you love, people you value. I think that's part of it. And I think that's a beautiful part, actually, because I think it feels good to know that you are making someone proud, that you're living up to maybe something. I don't know. I think as growing up, I really didn't hear that much. But I've absolutely communicated that I need to hear that. And that's really been super helpful. I have to be honest, even just hearing it from my parents, because they didn't realize that was such a big thing for me,
Yeah, and because, I mean, a lot of us come from families that didn't have a ton of emotional intelligence because they didn't have all these incredible books that we have now, and they didn't have the training or the access or the internet where you could even just Google, what is emotional intelligence? And you can learn. It's so incredible. So
I know.
I love that you said you told people you needed that, and they do it now. And so that shows me that you asked in a way that was received and also inspiring people to do something differently, because there are certain ways to ask for things that people will be like, whatever. So can you share what did those conversations look like? How did you ask and be able to get what you needed?
They weren't always easy. And just like everything we talked about, it was massive progress, just through a progression of time. So, I remember I first went to a landmark forum, and literally I don't recommend it for everyone, but it was a really amazing, life-changing weekend for me because it was just about that confronting. They really made you confront a lot of those things in your life that felt incomplete, right? So for me, I had major incompletes with my mom, and it's like I was blaming her for so much of the things that I wasn't accomplishing or doing or why I was a certain way instead of just looking at how I could have just asked her or told her or had more compassion for what she had gone through or understood that your mom is not just your mom. She's going through her own freaking life, but we don't realize that at all. We just think we're the center of mom's world when in all reality, mom is actually the center of mom's world.
Yeah.
And she's dealing with everything.
I don't throw around the word should very often.
Yeah.
But that's a place where I will gladly apply a should.
Yeah, it's so true. So I think I just had a lot of epiphanies really understanding that we're just if we are blaming at all in our lives, there's something that you can take power back from, which is really exciting. So if you're blaming, it means that you have a lot of wiggle room to become awesome and get what you want. So look at where you're blaming though, and what could you say or do or ask to get what you need? And for me, it was having the conversation of saying how I felt. Now, this may not be what you meant, but here's how I felt. Here's how I took it growing up, or here's what I need. And this is all I need from you. And, it was not an easy conversation to have. It was a lot of tears. It was really painful because to her, she thought she was doing everything she could. And to me, I didn't think that at all. Even though looking back now, I can see she was just trying to provide and do whatever, to make us happy and cover up all the other crap that was going on in life that she was trying to guard us from.
Yeah.
So having that conversation, it's like, and sometimes you have to have it 2 times, 3 times, 10 times, 20 times, whatever that is, however you need to hear it. And now it's like, now I hear it all the time, which is fantastic. And it's just a communication. Wow. That's brilliant. Communicating. Yes. And just gives you everything you need.
The share about the mom, something I have assigned to various clients over the years is to sit down with their mom and ask them, hey, what was it like for you during this time?
Wow.
Because often the things that are holding people back, whether it was a trauma or whether something, whatever it was, their experience of that situation is one-sided. It was their experience. And when there is blame and when there is resentment still or hurt with another person, it doesn't have to just be a mom, but to ask that person, what was that time like for you? The healing that comes from that is unbelievable. I think specifically always, the first time I ever had that idea to recommend that to someone was a woman who had a young daughter. And a lot of her drive was around mothering better than her mother mothered. And I said, I'd be super curious what your mom's experience was like raising you and your siblings. And she asked her, and she was like, oh my God, I had no idea. I had no idea. My mom had sacrificed a career. She had ambitions, and she sacrificed it to stay home with us. And she never got, so we do.
Wow.
We put our parents in this category of, superhuman, or that all these other things that we are learning and applying to ourselves don't apply to them. And once you reach a certain age, you realize being a grown-up is no joke.
It's no joke.
It is no joke. And they had to live through all this wild stuff. And even for me, I've asked my own parents those things. And to even see the differences, this kind of relates to what we were saying earlier, in different people's personalities and how one person was experiencing the same thing and how this person was experiencing it. Because memory, I talk about this on the show all the time, memory is not accurate. As this version of me, to look back on something that happened when I was 7, I'm not remembering it like 7-year-old me remembered it.
That's super powerful because my sister and I we've shared some experiences, and I'm like, what are you talking about? That was great. And she's like, I was so traumatized. And I was like, that was the best. And it's really interesting, like something that carried her through, like, and she's like 38 now. And I'm like, whoa, you got to let that go. Cause that was like, that was not a big thing. And it's just, it's conversating, right? So, and that's the hard part because, those are the things that it's just not easy. It's easier to sweep it under the rug and think it is what it is. And here's what's even easier is to blame why you are the way that you are on that thing. So you never confront it because you're just that way because of that thing.
Yeah.
And that's not true because you can choose to be another way and look at that thing as a different way.
Yes.
And if you want to free yourself, you got to go there and you got to see, you have to see it another way. Somehow you have to see it another way.
So I know you're a big reader too. What are you reading right now?
Actually, I'm grabbing stuff off my bookshelf right now because I just went on vacation, so I grabbed like 5 books. So I'm like, what haven't I read yet? So right now I'm reading. It's called The One Thing. I can't remember who
I
it's by.
started that book a while ago.
It's just a really quick, easy read. And right now I need to get really focused. So I'm trying to learn a lot about habits and focus. And I'm finding it's really easy for me to get distracted because I love being creative. And I love social media. I'm going to be really honest. I love putting stuff out there, but it's really easy for me to just get caught up making quote tiles. I mean, come on, you need to stop making I know it's weird, but it's something I like to do.
Hey.
I'm like, okay, you need to designate. I need to become a master of my calendar. So that's what I'm really focusing on is doing the things that I love, making sure that they're in there weekly, but getting really focused because when I'm off, I have this thing about my personality when I'm off or when I'm finding that I'm wasting time, I get really verklempt. So like a 3-year-old inside my body having a temper tantrum, I just get freak out. So I want to enjoy my downtime and really enjoy it when it's down. And I don't want that to be time where I feel like I should be doing something, right? Yes. That word should, because I find I do like on my downtime, on the time that I could be relaxing and recharging, I'm feeling like I should be doing something else. Yeah. So I know that by becoming a master of my schedule, I can change that. Yes. And so that's what I'm getting really focused on.
I have been in a similar place probably for about the last year and realizing how I split my attention. Right. So as women, our brain is wired for diffuse awareness. So that's why we can multitask better than men for the most part. Men are more single focus. But just because I'm wired that way doesn't necessarily mean it's the most useful thing. Because I underestimate how switching from one thing to the other wastes so much time. Because then to get back in the other groove, I have to gear myself back up. Versus if I would have just stuck with it for 45 minutes, I would have been done. Instead of trying to do 3 different things, 3 hours goes by and I barely got 2 done.
That is so me. And that's literally why I'm grabbing books that are habits focused, just because I want to free myself, right? I want to free myself of that feeling of going back and forth and, there was 3 hours. I totally could have got this done and somehow I didn't. Yeah. And you know what? That's totally a me thing. That's because I get distracted. I will totally admit it. I get so distracted. I could be talking to this person or that person or doing this or doing that. That's great that you can do that, but it's totally irritating you. So stop.
Yeah, and it's really an issue of presence as well, which has been a big topic for me this year. How can I be with things and also staying? Yes. So I had an experience this morning. I just got a stand-up paddleboard. And I went this morning. Yesterday I went in the ocean and it was a little terrifying. I don't know that I should have been doing that by myself yet. I'm kind of not great enough that might not be the best choice when it's choppy and windy outside. So this morning I went to a lagoon because I was like, I just want to paddleboard stress-free and not have to be terrified for my life. So I went to a lagoon. And when I got there, it's, that saying, this used to really bother me because obviously I needed to hear it, that saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. I still don't believe it 100% of the time. I think how you do anything is how you do most things. But I got there and you needed a permit. And the guy was on the beach setting up his little stand. The guy who does the permits, this adorable old man. This is probably 80-something, so cute, with a sunscreen in his ear. You know how when people don't rub their sunscreen? There's just so much to love about this adorable old man. And he could not possibly have been moving any slower. The computer was outdated. And it was cool because there was a piece of me now going, man, 5 years ago I would have been losing my shit. I would have been so impatient. But here's what I noticed. There was a moment when I thought about bailing. And I was like, all right, cool. I'll come back. I'll get that permit. I'll do this another time. And I was like, no, I came here to do this morning. I'm going to have the experience I wanted to have. And even that small little, this was something I committed to. Let me follow through. Follow through is something, I had been deceiving myself. And I wonder if you can relate to this. Because I get so much done, I deceive myself that I'm good with follow through. But for as many things that I follow through with, there's probably 10 times the things that I don't.
Yes.
You're like, yep.
I can't even tell you. Yes.
And I think sometimes it's a discernment. I don't think I need to follow through on everything. But then there's the relationship to the things we don't follow through. I'm with you. I think a large part of freedom is removing all the energy drains. And some of them are really subtle and some of them are hiding in plain sight.
And you just totally freed me there too. Just removing some of the things that what's the most pressing to follow through on, and let the other ones fall to the side. So what's really important to you? Are your dishes being done in your sink every single day most important to you? No. So please don't pay any attention to them. But really discerning those things, like, okay, you love this project over here and this is really exciting, but is it like your number one top priority? Well, you got to let that go right now. Or, oh, this is a great idea. Oh my God. Okay. Well, maybe that's for next year.
Yes.
And for me, people too, like now I've opened up this world of like loving people and connecting with people. And I'm really trying to figure out who those people are that I'd like to connect with and collaborate with, because it's easy for me to be like, this person, and then realize like, well, I didn't give that enough time, or I didn't give that enough thought, so there's that whole intuition thing again, because now I'm following my intuition. Great things happened last year of just jumping like, yes, I love this person. I'm going to do this with them, and got some really great results. But now I find doing that over and over, it's like there's some discernment that needs to go into that. That's a whole other podcast, girlfriend.
It's huge. I mean, even recently, have you had this happen? This is literally only happens to me twice. Thank God. You get someone on the show. You're having the conversation and you're like, this is whack. I don't, I had that happen recently. And I was like, man, do I just cut this off? Do I just call it? I've done that before. I was on somebody else's podcast. This was a really long time ago. And about 5 to 10 minutes in, I was like, hey, I don't want to finish this interview. I don't remember what I said, but like nothing in my system would let me keep going. I'm like, it was just the worst. And I couldn't. I just couldn't.
Oh my God. So that just reminds me, I'm like, how much time do we have? I'm going to tell you a quick story that happened to me right before I left on vacation. So I'm all about this like more self-care, right? Because I have not, like I've been terrible with it. So I'm going to get really good at it. And I was like, okay, I bought these massages. Like I'm booking this massage even before I go on vacation. And I'm like working out really hard. This is going to feel so good. So I book this massage and I go in and I meet the girl, and she's like so amazingly kind and nice and sweet, whatever. So I strip down, I get on the bed, and she comes in, and just the second, when they pat down the blanket, like even just like getting you ready, she is trembling. And I'm like, oh, what is this? That's not very relaxing. Yeah. So then she starts, like massaging my back and whatnot. And she's just shaking like that, like that's shaking so much the table is shaking. And I'm like, okay, I booked a 90-minute massage. I'm like, I can't do this. It was making me so anxious, but I'm not that person who no, I am that person who says what she wants. So,
yes.
So literally I was like, oh my God, my worst nightmare just came true. I'm going to have to make this person stop, get dressed, walk through the room, tell them why I can't finish this massage, let them think that maybe I was the weirdo, and like be okay with that. Yeah. So I'm like, 5 minutes goes by and I'm like, I am so sorry. I don't know if your arms are really tired or if you've had too much coffee, or what I was thinking was if you're on drugs, but I didn't say that. But I was like, I can't. I'm like, I can't actually finish this massage. This is way, I said, I can't relax. You're shaking the table so much. And she was like, oh, okay, I'll just tell them you weren't happy with your service. I was like, oh no, I'm going to go tell them. So I had to go to the front desk, and they literally stared at me blankly when I said this. Like they didn't give me any So it was a lesson for me. I knew that right at that point. I was like, oh crap, this is a lesson of sometimes doing what you want. You're not going to get the feedback you want, right? I wanted to go to that front desk. I wanted them to tell me everything's okay. Don't worry about it. You're fine. But instead they just stared at me like I was a freak. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll call back and either rebook or something. And they were like, okay.
And even that, right, is because people asking for what they want is not the norm.
Oh my gosh. It was a
Endurance.
traumatic experience.
In
I
our
have to tell you,
culture,
but I'm so glad I
endurance
did
is
it.
the norm. Yeah, I'm so glad you
Yeah.
did too. I'm like that with, I've always been like that with fitness classes. Coming with the fitness background, I'm such an instructor snob. I'll leave a class. There's no way. Like 5-10 minutes in, because there's also that concern for the person. You don't want them to feel bad.
Yes.
But here's the deal: if my class is that way for people and they're walking out, I need that feedback so I can get
Yeah.
better at my craft or just whatever, or who knows what was going on with that girl. Maybe she needed to call out of work that day and she didn't.
Yeah.
And whether people take the lessons or not, that's the part where you get to go, listen, everyone gets to have their own experience. I got to take care of my needs. I'm so happy you did that and that you shared this story.
Thank you.
So, all right, we'll wrap it up. I'll ask you one more question. Under the topic of untaming yourself, there's really only two planned questions on this podcast. What do you love about being a woman? And this question that I pretty much ask everyone on the way out, which is untaming yourself really just means coming home to your true nature, right? Your wild soul is really just that true, intrinsic, absolutely to your core, honest part of you that has always been you. Is there anything I didn't ask you related to that or anything on that topic that you'd just like to share as we sign off?
Oh, I just keep thinking like, my truest nature is to be silly and funny and say what I'm thinking in that moment. And I think that when we can figure out what your truest nature is and find like allowing that person to come out a little bit more every single day, no matter what people think, I think that's when that's when you find what you love and that's when you're happiest.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it feels good. And in
know.
fact, to go back to the thing about effort that we said earlier, being yourself requires way less effort than trying to be something you're not.
Oh my God. It's so much better.
So much better. And I think that's another reason why I like you so much, because it's also my nature to just be goofy and silly and crack jokes and say inappropriate things that might not always be welcome. So, all right, y'all, if you love Lori Harder too and you want more of her in your life, you can find her at Lori, Lori, Harder.com. The podcast of hers is Earn Your Happy, which you can find in iTunes. We will link up in the show notes to our episode together and a couple other things we mentioned in the show, like books and all those other things. So, follow her on Instagram. She's on all the social medias, like you heard her say. She's doing the Snapchats. And I like to say things like I think a parent would, like the Twitters and the Snapchats.
The Twitter, the Facebook.
Or my mom. My brother's a comedian, and my mom one time goes, "Are you on the tweeter?"
I'm sure he didn't use that at all.
No, he totally did. So, all right, we're signing off. Thank you so, so much. We'll talk to you later.
Oh, thank you. I loved it.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
And I'm also I'm in the support business and I'm in the permission business. I don't recommend this for most of you, but I've shared just like every intimate detail of my life on the internet for the past 4 years. I've actually slowed down recently as Elizabeth and I started making agreements around like what's sacred. But if you look at my blog from 3 or 4 years ago, I'm talking about doing acid at Burning Man and my deepest fears of being an entrepreneur, like my money shame and my money blocks, and like times when I like wanted to die because I was just one of those men who just out there like drowning. It's like just drowning as there are all these people in boats like, yo, dude, I'm right here. Like, do you want a hand? And I'm just like, no, I'm dying by myself, which a lot of men do. And I don't recommend that, but just because I've basically just like gone out there and explored so many different areas down to the bottom of the rabbit hole, I'm a safe place to land. Like I'm a really, really safe place to land.